Hello everyone. At this point in the course, we have finished the development of our app, and now we're ready to push it live up onto the web so that the entire world can view it. Now there are many different ways to host your Laravel app on the web, and in this video I just want to briefly talk about this topic from a bird's eye view. Big picture. So when I first started with web development, I used basic shared web hosts. For example, a company like DreamHost or Bluehost or HostGator or GoDaddy or any sort of similar basic shared hosting plan. Now, with some of these hosts, it's possible to install Laravel, but with some of them, it might just be closer to impossible. But the thing is that with shared hosting in general, you're always going to be fighting an uphill battle when it comes to installing Laravel. I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying it could be difficult, and that's because every shared host is slightly different. And you're always going to be fighting against their rules and their limitations of what they've chosen to install on their machines or what they allow you to install on their machines, so on and so forth. Like, for example, I've successfully installed Laravel projects on a shared DreamHost account before, but it was not an enjoyable or easy experience. It involved Googling for about an hour or more, finding all sorts of workarounds and tweaks and hacks and customizations just to get it to work. And each shared hosting company is going to be different and require its own, hour or two of Googling research just to get it to be able to work. So the reason I say all of that is just that there's no way for me to provide a universal educational lesson in this course if we were going to use shared web hosting, because they're all so different and unique, and they all have their own unique hacks and workarounds and tweaks that are required. So all of that brings me to my next point, which is the best solution, in my opinion, to host a Laravel website is to use a VPS. VPS stands for Virtual Private Server. There are a ton of different companies that offer this, but I think the big three would be DigitalOcean, Linode, and Vultr. These companies let you set up a brand new fresh Linux box that you are in 100% complete control over. Now, when I first started with web development, 15 or 20 years ago, you'd have to spend big money each month to get access to your own server that you were in complete control over like that. But nowadays, these big three companies like DigitalOcean, Linode, and Vultr, they have plans starting at $5 a month, which I just think is awesome. Like, you're getting great value for the money. Now, you might be saying though, Brad, that's cool, but I don't want to learn about Linux and the command line and how to SSH into a machine and a server. I don't want to learn how to provision, a fresh Linux operating system to host web applications like Laravel. Well, in that case, if you don't want to learn much about like DevOps and Linux and so on and so forth, there's a great option, and it's the official Laravel option called Forge. So with Forge, you would still have to connect your Laravel Forge account to your DigitalOcean account or your Linode account or your Vultr account. But the idea is that Laravel Forge, the official Laravel solution, it will connect to those services and it will provision and create a Linux server from scratch. So it will set up everything for you. It will create the perfect environment, and then you just, push your Laravel source code files up, and the rest is taken care of for you. Now that's great. That's amazing. Laravel Forge is an excellent service. However, within the context of an educational course, I'm not going to use Forge. And the reason for that is simple. Yes, it's a great service. It's the official Laravel solution, but I don't want to sort of have any vendor lock-in in this course, right? I don't want you to leave this course only knowing how to set up live sites using Forge, right? I want you to walk away from this course with a more universal or, unopinionated or educational view of how to set things up yourself. So, big picture, there's nothing wrong with using Forge. Quite the opposite. It's amazing. But I want you to know how to build your own server and take matters into your own hands if you want to. So in other words, I want to teach you how to provision a brand new fresh Linux operating system to host a Laravel application. Right? Because within the context of an educational course like this, I want to take the magic and the mystery out of things. I want you to see how all of the puzzle pieces work together, and most importantly, I want you to see from firsthand experience that setting up your own production server doesn't have to be scary or feel intimidating like it's rocket science. So, having said that, if you have a credit card and you're willing to spend $5 a month to spin up a real VPS, you can feel free to skip these next couple of videos, and you can skip ahead to the videos where I actually set up a real Linode VPS server, right? And I show you how I would do it on camera, so you can follow along with me. However, if you don't have a credit card, or if you don't want to spend even an extra dollar right now, that's the entire point of these next couple of videos. In these next couple of videos, we're going to use Docker just for local practice purposes. I want you to be able to practice provisioning a Linux computer to host a Laravel application, and I want you to be able to practice that for free. And Docker is great for this. If we use our imagination a bit, we can essentially use Docker as a virtual machine solution that is lightning fast even on older or slower computers. And best of all, it won't cost us a single penny. Now, yes, we won't be actually pushing our app up onto the web for the world to view, right? Docker is still just on your own local personal computer, so only you can view the website. But the idea is that you can use your imagination that our Docker container is a separate computer. Like you could imagine it's a VPS, and this way we can get unlimited practice for free. We can learn about Linux, we can learn about the command line, we can learn how to set up a web hosting environment, so on and so forth. Now, once we finish this Docker practice section of the course, I am also going to walk through how I would actually deploy my app to Linode, for example, right? A real-world public VPS. Big picture, what I'm trying to say is that you don't need to watch both of these sections. They're sort of optional, and you can choose your own path. If you want to, you can absolutely follow both. I think there's definitely value in that, but the idea is that if you don't want to spend $5 on a VPS host to practice for real, that's what these Docker videos are for. If you are willing to spend $5 a month to spin up a real VPS to practice with, well, then you can skip to those lessons. So it's up to you. Now, let's get more specific about, this video and the very next following video. We're going to use Docker. Now, there is an official Laravel Docker image where you can just run one command and have Laravel up and running in Docker. That's great, that's amazing, but it's not very educational. You wouldn't be learning anything about Linux or DevOps or setting up a server. So with that said, that's why I like to use Docker in sort of an alternative fashion. I like to use Docker almost as if it was a VirtualBox replacement. Like I just want to create a virtual machine basically. Now VirtualBox is great, but VirtualBox can be slow even on fairly powerful modern computers. Also, setting up a virtual machine in VirtualBox can be really difficult or slow compared to just using Docker. So Docker runs really fast on basically all computers, and it's really easy to spin up a new container. So this is just my way of saying that, yes, I am 100% aware that this is not how you would ever use Docker, quote, in the real world. And I'm purposely going to go against all of the Docker best practices, such as, having only one service per container, and the idea that containers are supposed to be ephemeral and temporary, and you're supposed to be okay with one being deleted and just spinning up a new one to replace it, and the idea that you shouldn't store any persistent data in a container, so on and so forth. So we're going to break all of those Docker best practices because this is not a course about Docker for the sake of Docker. This is a course about Laravel, and I just want a fast, sort of easy virtual machine that can run on most computers very quickly. So big picture, we're going to use our imagination that our Docker container is a VPS server, right? We're going to pretend that like it's a Linode box or a DigitalOcean box or a Vultr box. And we're going to practice from the command line provisioning a fresh Linux computer into hosting our Laravel application. Cool. So where do we go from here? Well, before this lesson ends, I want you to visit docker.com and I want you to install something called Docker Desktop. You should find the link just here on the homepage of docker.com. It's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. In addition to from the homepage, I believe if you go into the products menu, you should see Docker Desktop. So that's what we're interested in. You can find it on the homepage once again. But before you end this lesson, just go ahead and install Docker Desktop. It's completely free. Just choose the free option and you should be good to go. Now, in our very next lesson, we're going to learn how to use Docker to start practicing. So we can practice for free at our own pace. We don't have to worry about spending $5 a month, on a DigitalOcean, Linode, or Vultr account. We're just going to use Docker locally to practice stress-free, zero anxiety, zero stress of, messing something up that's already live and public on the web. So this is great. It's very low stakes, and it's a great way to get our feet wet in terms of learning about the Linux command line. I think this is going to be a ton of fun. I'm so excited to jump into this with you, and I will see you in the next lesson.